We are going to perform the first part of the first part of the experiment 7 today. For Monday, we will do experiment 6, and next Wednesday we are going to continue with experiment 7. Why we give like a one lab space between the part 1 and part 2? Because the crystals that we are looking for, the prismatic crystals that we are looking for this experiment, it takes longer time to form. I usually give like 2 weeks time for those crystals to form. No semester, I do 1 week, part 1 of the experiment 7, and then I do the part 2, experiment 6. Then I go back to experiment 7. That gives like 2 weeks of time. The lab notebook is for experiment 7 first, but since we are going to continue with experiment 7 for Wednesday, if you have your lab notebook ready for experiment 6, that is fine. I gave time for this experiment 7 lab notebook to be turned in until Wednesday, so you are going to you have time, because today I'm not going to spend too much of a time about the theory of the experiment. I want you to, for those of you who have lectured with me, I want you to take your test, study the chapter. You have more idea about the pair of enantiomers, and you understand. And next week we are using the next class, or next Wednesday when we are performing the second part of the experiment 7. We will talk about how to use the machine. I will demonstrate the use of the machine, and also explain the resolution, because this part of resolution for lecture is optional, and I did not cover in the resolution technique in the lecture. So I will do that next Wednesday. So today we're just going to perform the first part of the experiment, and we stop at step 7, and we are going to pick it up next Wednesday. For step 1 of the experiment, we are going to dissolve 12.45 grams of pure plus tartaric acid. That is only the plus sign of the tartaric acid. Okay, if you look at the assignment due date, I have everything updated. You can find out based on either calendar or look at the assignments. I don't have the exact date remembered now, but it's there already. I updated all, so it should say which day it's due. Most likely next Sunday for 7. Okay, let me go ahead and start with the measurement first. Using gloves. We're going to measure the 12.5 grams of tartaric acid. Yes, for this Sunday is only the lab report for experiment 5 that is due for this Sunday. That is true. You can start experiment 7, but you don't have the data. You can start, you could write most of it and wait, because next week you have 3 lab reports. You don't want to get all of them in one. Okay, can take a screenshot. Take a screenshot of the mass for tartaric acid. Okay. Next step is to add 75 milliliters of methanol, and we also need 10.6 milliliters of the amine in 75 milliliters of ethanol. So we're going to, both of them are methanol. Okay. Five milliliters of methanol added to make sure that it's going to dissolve. We are going to leave it to dissolve. And we also need 75 milliliters of methanol for the to learn to adjust this. Okay. 10.6 milliliters of phenylethylamine. This is the chiral compound, but it's a mixture of 2 enantiomers. And during this experiment, we try to separate the R enantiomer from S enantiomer. Okay, going to adjust to 10.6 milliliters. Add 75 milliliters of methanol and mix to dissolve. Done with the measurement. What's the next step? You tell me what's the next step, please. What's the next step? Okay, add the phenylethylamine solution to the tartaric acid solution and mix it well. Does it have to be dissolved first before I add it, or I can add it before? Should it dissolve separately before I add? Yes? Okay. So I'm using a magnetic stir today to make sure that it dissolves. It kind of makes it faster. That's all. Okay, page 88. Okay. Page 88 of your lab manual, where you have the X equals 84.5% R. Please make a corrections. It should be 84.5% S, and then 15.5 is percent R. Make that correction, please. And also, okay. It's on page 88. I don't know if the ebook is also page 88 or not. There's a typo here. X equals 84.5% R. Make sure that changes to percent S for 84.5. And for the next one, 15.5, that would be percent R. That's one correction there. Make the correction. I'm adding the tartaric acid. And heat it up to near boiling. It shouldn't take long to boil because boiling point for methanol is only 65 degrees, so it would boil quickly. So I have to watch and make sure that I monitor this. While we are waiting for that, I want you to go to page 86. For page 86, where you have enantiomers of phenylethylamine, S minus, and then the mirror image of that would be R plus. So make sure you correct that. It's going to be R plus. Okay, that's like a typo again. So is the S minus phenylethylamine and then R plus of that. What is the next step after heating up to near boiling? So I could get ready for the equipment and the chemicals for the next step. What's the next step? And you could also take a screenshot of the setup now. Cool the flask in ice bath. Perfect. And do you know why we are cooling in the ice bath for the first time? So I have my ice bath ready, but you know why we are cooling in the ice bath? You have two types of crystals that are forming when you cool off the phenylethylamine mixed with the tartaric acid. So now you have a diastereomer. If you look at the page 86, is going to explain how the diastereomers are forming. One of the diastereomers is going to be needle-like. It forms when you cool it down, like suddenly. It's a fast precipitation. The prismatic crystals, it takes longer and it's not going to form right away as you are cooling it down. So when we cool it down and we heat it up again, the needle-like crystal is going to dissolve, and we hope that by cooling slowly, the prismatic crystals are going to form. So we are looking for the prismatic, is a different shape of the crystals. We are looking for the prismatic shape of the crystals, not the needle-like. If you get a needle-like mix, then we have mixture of two enantiomers, as we talked about it in lecture, and we are not going to get a specific rotation matching the literature value. And depends on how pure the substance is going to be, we will have more deviation from the standard or literature value for the specific rotation for our compound after purification. Do you have any questions while we are waiting? Experiment 7 is performed in 2 separate days. So in order to write the lab report, you need to finish the second part of experiment 7. When you finish the experiment 7, then you can write the lab report, if that is your question. Is that right? Okay. So you're just doing part 1 of the experiment now. Part 2 is on, and if you check the lab schedule, the homepage of the course, it does say that you're doing 1 part today and then you continue like part 2 of the experiment. So when you read the procedure also, it tells you, I'm sure you have read the procedure because I saw you have your lab notebook ready, but the procedure also calls for overnight waiting time for the crystallization. Those prismatic crystals do not form right away. It takes a long time. And I just hope that we can get it, actually, we can get crystals for less than, we have like 5 days. Hopefully we get crystals in 5 days. Because if we don't get crystals, we cannot continue the experiment. Then we may have to wait, but we cross the bridge when we get there. For now, we're just going to finish the first part of the experiment and wait until Wednesday for prismatic crystals to form. Okay, I see the bubbles are forming, so this is near boiling. Going to stop. Place an ice bath. So make sure that the top now is in the ice bath. We wait for crystals to form. They start forming now, but I want to make sure that it's more clear to you so you could see the crystals actually. So these crystals that they form, those are crystals, but we don't need those type of crystals. Because if it forms right away, and you might be able to see they are powdered or they're like needle-like. That's not what we wanted. We want crystals that they are prismatic. So since the crystals have formed, I'm going to place on hot plate again. Make sure that it's those crystals dissolve, or I heat up the mixture to the near boiling again. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions about the theory for this experiment while we are waiting for the crystals to dissolve. Any questions? Okay, it's boiling, and since it's boiling, now I have to cool it down this time slowly. So we're going to cover it with the cork and paraffin. And since I have a magnetic stirrer in there, I'm going to transfer it. It's not part of the procedure, but since I use the magnetic stirrer, I want to. Okay. We're going to cover it. And place it in the cabinet. inside this cabinet until Wednesday, where we keep the samples. The cabinet that we keep the samples. We are going to take it out next Wednesday, continue with the experiment, and Monday actually I'm going to check it to see if there are needle-like crystals, and if there are any needle-like crystals, I'm going to heat it up again and leave it until Wednesday, try to redissolve the needle-like crystals. Do you have any questions? The first part of the experiment is done, and we are going to continue the second part of with this experiment on Wednesday. Do you have any questions for me? No questions? Okay. If you don't have questions, I'm going to stop the recording and take attendance. By that time, if you remember any questions, make sure you ask your questions. But let me first take the attendance today.